Kidding? Just one shot?
They're not all zombies, Doug. How do you fight this thing?
Maybe we could drown it in A1 sauce.
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back.
It's a dance song to get down with. About 6 feet under. Get there.
Ooh, I love this song.
And now we come to the thrilling final episode of our radio drama.
Hello and welcome to episode 213 of the Rotten Reviews podcast. We have a fun episode set for you guys today. This movie is from 1988. Probably, as you guys can already tell from the title, we're watching Brain Damage. But before we do get into that movie, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening to the podcast. If you're a new listener or a returning listener, either or, I just want to say thank you very much for showing up for this episode and every other episode that you might decide to listen to. I don't expect you guys to listen to every single episode, but I appreciate it nonetheless. We are still on that grind of trying to make as much content as possible. I'm still trying to stay as far ahead of these episodes as possible, because I do want to do some mini episodes at some point in time. I'm just not sure when or what they're going to be of yet. I have a few concepts and a few ideas of what I want to do. I just don't know which one I want to do first. So I guess, the main thing is just picking one and going with it. But we have a lot of other content, as you can probably tell, down by the links in the description below. But, before I get talking about that too much, we will do some housekeeping at this point in time.
Housekeeping?
I think you're sleeping.
Housekeeping?
Could you come back in an hour?
Housekeeping, you want towel?
More towels. Need sleepy.
Housekeeping, you want mint for pillow?
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
If you guys want to follow me on any social media accounts, all the links are down below. But just at @Sign, find me on Instagram, Facebook. Those be the main two things. Threads, I'm kind of on there. Twitter, I occasionally use that as well. TikTok, not so much. But we have a YouTube channel as well, so definitely go check that out. I do live streams over there as much as I want to lately, but we're going to be working on some stuff this weekend. I got a capture card. I'm going to work on some overlays and stuff, and hopefully set up a more, unique looking stream, I guess you could say. Something that's a little bit more professional, not just me talking into the microphone. Everything's making little improvements here and there. Just like I'm using a new mic tonight. I'm not sure if it's going to be a better mic. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys enjoy this sound a little bit better. It's still the Yeti brand, but this one's the Nano, so I don't have as many options on it, but it's pristine, brand new. So hopefully it will be good. We'll see. It sounds alright to me. I don't know which one sounds better, so you guys can let me know. It's not like the high quality podcast mic that I'm hoping to get at some point in time down the road, but it's improvement, I think. Let me know. I don't know. That way I have like my podcast mic set up, I have my mic set up on my PS5. This kind of way I can do various videos on various platforms, not obviously at once, but I don't have to like unplug the mic from one item, plug into another item. It makes it a little bit more convenient, I would think. Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe it's just gonna be more clutter for all I know. We'll trial and error run. That's all we do here. Trial and error and see what works best. But seeing we are getting closer and closer to Halloween season, this year I'm changing up the artwork that I'm doing for the 31 days theme. Every year I do a drawing a day for Halloween. I do a drawing a day anyways for my daughter's lunchbox series anyways. But this series that I do is Halloween themed. Last year I did 31 days of Treehouse of Horror images. This year I'm doing 31 days of Scooby-Doo bad guys, Scooby-Doo villains. from the various animated series, the movies and whatnot. It's called Scootober. I totally stole that name from somewhere else. I don't know where I saw it. Might have been actually on like the Multiverses game where you can play as Shaggy and stuff. It might be a banner image on there. I don't know where I took it from. I'm gonna just admit that now. But we're going to use that as the title for this. So I got, I think, like 9 of them already done and ready, which is really good because it's only, we're still in September. Late September, of course, but we are ahead of the game, so I don't have to actually rush to get stuff done. Because last year, and I do it every year, and I'll be like maybe a day, maybe 2 days ahead, and then everything would just fall behind, and then I'm rushing to get the content out. But now, hopefully with this weekend coming up, I'm gonna get a ton of those done. Get all of Abby's, lunchbox drawings done for the week. We're doing the podcast right now for next week, so all I have to really worry about is the weekly video coming out Wednesday, because I drop a gaming video every single Wednesday on the YouTube channel. We're also doing old episodes of the podcast on there as well, and I'm also posting videos over on the Facebook page, so definitely go check that out if you're a Facebook user. You guys actually looking at the content, my content on Facebook, it doesn't amount to much, but I do start to get money actually from that. We're working towards getting ads on our reels, so hopefully they'll accept me for that program. I don't know if they will. I'm not that big of a content creator, but we'll see how it goes. Who knows? It could happen. It might not happen. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But the fact that I'm actually at the stage now where people just even looking and browsing at my content on Facebook actually, it adds up a few dollars here and there. It's kind of cool. Obviously, we're not doing it for the money by any means, but it's just a nice added effect that we can just, start pooling and saving that money to get better equipment for down the road. But enough of all that crap. I know you guys are here to listen to me talk about this movie. We are watching for I don't know how many times I've actually seen this movie. I've seen it a handful of times, but we are watching Brain Damage from 1988. It's an hour and 24-minute long movie. The description as read on IMDb: one morning, a young man wakes to find that a small, disgusting creature has attached himself to the base of his brainstem. The creature gives him a euphoric state of happiness, but demands human victims in return. I mean, that doesn't sound like too bad of a brain infection, I guess. You can watch this movie if you want on Apple TV, but I'm cheap and I'm watching actually a copy that I found on YouTube, which actually is a fairly decent copy from what I've seen so far. So if you want to watch it, definitely go check it out on YouTube. But this movie has a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 4.6 out of 5 on Amazon.ca. Apparently 87% of Google users have liked this film. Initial release date was April 15th, 1988. Why is this? And also on Google it says it's distributed by Netflix. I don't understand that one. Oh, whatever. The director and the writer is the same person, so we get a little bit of an easy take on this because obviously if you guys are a new listener, of course the recurring listeners already know this. I talk about a movie from start to finish. I talk about the director, the writers, and then I talk about a couple of the stars. And I get a little bit easy job on this side because the director and the writer is the same person, and I'm going to butcher their last name like I always do. But the writer and director is Frank Henenlotter. I'm not good at names, especially last names. I butcher them. But he's also the director for 1990's Frankenhooker. He was the director for 1982's Basket Case. He was the director for 2008 Bad Biology. Never even heard of that one. It's weird. He has like a little jump in content. So of course he did Basket Case from 1982. He did Basket Case in 1990. He did Basket Case 3 in 1991. Then there's a gap from 91 to 2008 where he did Bad Biology. He was also the director for 2013's That's Sexopolitan. Never even heard that one. But he's also did a movie in 2018 called Boiled Angels, The Trial of Mike Diana. Don't know anything about that one either, but might be interesting. And of course, a couple of the people that we're going to talk about in this movie, one being the lead, Rick Hurst, who's playing the character Brian. Good name, just saying. He's also best known for being in General Hospital for 628 episodes from 2002 to 2024. Holy crap. He was also in 100 episodes of The Guiding Light from 1990 to 1996, and he did 18 episodes from 2000 to 2001 of The Young and Restless. He's a soap star? Really? He's a soap star? Alright, I'm not going to judge. It's fine. Gotta pay those bills, right? Alright, this is kind of weird. He did Brain Damage in 1988, but the next thing on his IMDb is Days of Our Lives, which he started in 1989, 1990, where he did 106 episodes. How do you go from Brain Damage to Days of Our Lives, of all things? Next person on the list that we're going to talk about is Gordon MacDonald, who's playing the character of Mike, who's also also best known for being in a movie called The Brave One in 2007. He was in The Perfect Stranger in 2007. He was in 5 episodes of Saving Grace from 2007 to 2010. Other than that, he hasn't really done much of anything. He's in 1 episode of Law and Order. Actually, he's in 5 episodes of Law and Order, but he's in 1 episode of Law and Order SVU. He was in an episode of All My Children, and other than that, he hasn't really done too much. He's got a movie coming out this year, or has already came out, Drive Away Dolls, where he plays a waiter, so I don't think that's probably that big of a role, to be honest with you. And the last person we're going to talk about is recommended on IMDb that we discussed because it's in the top 3 on this movie. Their name is Jennifer Lowry, who's playing Barbara. She hasn't done anything else. She was in a cast. She's part of the casting director for The Down Boys, It Could Happen to You in 1999. But other than that, she doesn't have anything at all. So this cast is full of people that didn't really do too much, I guess, which is fine. That's not a strike against the movie by any means. It's just, it's a movie of its time. That's kind of how these movies started back then. Which I enjoy these movies more than modern day movies because they actually took chances on the concept and the designs of things and didn't just, make a movie just because they knew it was going to hopefully make them millions of dollars or cash in on a concept that's already been drilled into everyone else's skull. So that's good at least. But yeah, enough about that. If you guys are a new listener, like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about this movie from start to finish and hit all the points in between that interest me. So if you don't want to be spoiled on a movie that came out in 1988, that's silly. Go watch it on YouTube for free. If not, then just sit back, relax, listen to me talk about the movie. Either I'll describe it really well and make you really, really want to see the movie, or you'll be like, nah, you know what? It's good. I'll just pass on that one. I'm sure you want to see this movie at least once, though. Should definitely get it on your bucket list at least once. But that being said, that's your final warning. So sit back, get some snacks, get some popcorn, whatever it might be. Sit back and relax. If you're at work, hopefully this helps you get through the day. And if you're in the car, make sure to keep your eyes on the road, okay? We don't need any accidents. And yeah, we're gonna get started on the movie right now. Oh, silly thing. One last thing, because I always talk about it. This movie's tagline, the movie that will blow your mind. Simple, straightforward, right to the point. It's the concept of the movie, and sadly the last movie we didn't have a tagline, but this one does, so that's good. That's plus points for that. All right, we're going to get started on the movie right now. Hopefully you guys don't hear too much like static or anything in the background. It's another warm night actually in this place, so I got my fan on in the background. It's not like right on the mic by any means, but you might hear a little bit of static. If you do, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like sweating my ass off.
Presents Saturday Night at the Movies, the television series which each week brings you the finest in recent motion pictures. Tonight...
It's funny. One night you go to bed, and when you wake up, everything is different. Now Brian's acting a little peculiar.
He's like a completely different person. I don't even know him anymore.
Something's gotten into him.
Sometimes everything glows with a different kind of light.
Deep into him.
What are you telling me, that we killed someone last night?
Something bad.
Attack me, Brian. Attack me.
Something slimy.
What are you doing?
Something very...
I know something's happened to you.
Very...
What the hell is that?
Hungry.
You can't keep killing people every time you're hungry.
You're mine now, Brian. I own you.
Gotta get out of here fast. Go where?
You're a wreck, Brian.
Leave me alone!
Whenever you want to stop hurting, you come to me.
Brain damage. It will turn you inside out.
Alright, we got our movie starting out. It's got a nice little drum beats. Got some nice music set up. Then we see this black screen with some lightning bolts popping through. It's like a lightning going all the way through the screen. And then Brain Damage, the font comes right up on the screen. And I personally like the style and title font of that intro, which I think a nice title font really sets the mood, especially the music playing in the background. And then we see some kind of carved statues. I don't know what the proper name for them would be by any means, but they're various like tribal looking masks and whatnot. and tribal looking statues. And then we just see like a book, and it's breaking down the human body. I'm not sure why, but we'll just go with it. And then we see this old guy coming home, and he's locking up the front door, and the wife comes up. She's like, "Yo, you're gone for so goddamn long. I was kind of worried about you. I didn't know what happened to you." He's like, I had to go so goddamn far to get the goddamn parcel. The wife is saying how, maybe they should start going to the other butcher, and the other butcher would ask too many questions. And then we see the wife unwrapping what is inside the butcher wrapper, and it's brains. It's just a bunch of brains. And the wife is so happy to feed Elmer his brains for his din-din. They go to feed Elmer, which is a little brain infection that gets stuck in Brian's brain cell or brain stem, and she's crying because he's apparently no longer in the bathtub where they keep him. I guess he went down the toilet, maybe? And we see Brian in the movie, just sleeping and his phone's ringing, and then he answers the phone, and some girl on there and be like, "Brian, you still asleep? You're supposed to be getting ready already. Come on, Brian, wake up." We just see the receiver of the phone fall to the floor, and then we cut back to that old couple, and they're destroying their place, throwing dishes all over the place, throwing laundry all over the place. They're looking for little Elmer, the little brain infection, who's apparently gone missing, and for some reason I think he might be behind all the books on the bookshelf. I'm not sure how he'd be there, but we'll just go with it. I'm gonna say that the wife is psychotic because she's literally having a tantrum, which looks like she's in her kitchen, and she's just screaming, pulling on the cupboard doors, crying and screaming. And then we see that girl that was on the phone showing up in Brian's apartment because the roommate, I guess, lets her in, and she starts shaking his foot, being like, "Come on, Brian, you gotta get up. We gotta be there in a few minutes. We gotta leave. Come on, get up, get your ass up." And then she's like, "Are you sick?" And he's like, "No, I just laid down. I was a little bit tired. I just don't know if something happened to me or not." Then we find out the old couple's name is the Ackermans, and it's Martha and Norris, and they knock on their neighbor's door. It's like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Introduce ourselves. Can we see your bathtub though, because we gotta go check it?" And Norris just bursts in and goes to check the bathtub, but of course Elmer's not there, so then they leave. She's like, "You guys are crazy." And they're like, "Yeah, just a little bit." So we come to find out that it's Brian and Mike. They're also roommates, but they're also brothers apparently, and Brian is pawning his girlfriend off on Mike to go see this concert or show or whatever, because they already got tickets, and because Brian's feeling a little sick, he wants to get some sleep. And then we just cut to the Ackerman's apartment, where they're on the floor, foaming from the mouth, and just like grasping at their like chest and stomach area. They're not like grasping to rip their clothes off by any means, but they're definitely having like a seizure or something for some reason. I'm not sure why. So it's later that night. We see Brian asleep in bed, and then he wakes up, and his face feels a little sweaty. So he rubs his face, and he sees blood all over his hands. So he freaks out, jumps out of bed, and he's looking around at his bed, and his bed is coated in blood. He starts feeling around at the back of his head, and then he feels that there's some blood back there, so he goes to the washroom to try and see what's happening, and we can see the back of his head and down his neck is all bloody, and he falls down on the bathtub being like, "What's happening to me?" And then he starts laughing because he starts freaking out a little bit, or maybe it's Elmer, affecting the way his mind actually works. And then he's trying to leave the bathroom, but then just falls over and starts crawling. And as we see him crawling, the lights are flashing a little bit. The music's starting to pick up. It's starting to get a lot more intense. And we see him crawling back into his bed, where we see a shot from behind, where we see like more blood gushing out of the back of his neck. And then he lays down in his bed where all that blood is, and he just starts staring up at the ceiling, not sure what's going on at all. Then as he's staring up at the ceiling, we see one of his lights in the ceiling, and he just starts beaming a bright white light, and he starts blinding his eyes from it because he can't see. And then we just see his room filling up with a blue water that almost looks like toilet bowl cleaner or blue Kool-Aid. You be the judge of that one. Then as he's looking back up at the light in the ceiling a little bit more, it slowly starts to change. The light starts to change, and it transforms into an eyeball, and then the whole screen starts flashing at your face as you start seeing this eyeball getting bigger and bigger. And then we cut back to him laying in bed, and then there's some very poorly done CGI water where we can see a hard black outline around his hand, where the water's almost supposed to be at the same level as the top of his bed, but clearly it's not. And then we see him slowly being engulfed by this super bright blue water, toilet bowl cleaner, Kool-Aid, whatever you might want to call it. And then next thing you know, we see his room's all dark, and we're looking back up at that ceiling light, and now it's just a basic light again, and he's sitting on the floor by his bed, by the register, the heat register, just staring up at the light, all confused as to what's going on with his life. Then we see Brian getting up, he's going to the washroom, he's looking in the mirror, and we see the point of view from behind him, and we can see his neck, and there's some blood and some veins looking all over the back of the neck, but then there's also this hole that's going through the whole back of his neck, and we can already know that Elmer is living inside his spine, his brainstem. And then oddly enough, we hear Brian hearing some water dripping, and he looks down at the bathtub, and the bathtub is filled up with water, just like at the other home where the old folks were taking care of Elmer, the little brain virus guy. So then Brian starts freaking out, being like, I know there's somebody else around here, come on out, let me see ya. And then he starts feeling something moving inside his stomach, underneath his shirt, of course. And then of course we see the practical effects of something moving around underneath his shirt, and then the music starts to pick up and getting suspenseful again. And then we just see a point of view of Brian staring at the vanity mirror, and then Elmer pops up behind him and is like, hi. And then we see them sitting in the bedroom together, and Elmer is now in a bucket, almost looks like a garbage can, and Elmer's like, this is the start of your new life, Brian, you know, a life of happiness, you know, and I'm all you'll ever need, Brian, because I'll give you all the happiness in your life that you need. And then Elmer's like, you know, all you gotta do is just listen and see the light. Listen and see the light. He's like, I would love to, but I don't see it anymore. He's like, well, fine, I'll make you a deal, Brian. I'll make you a deal so you can see the light again. You gotta kill some people though for me, okay? Elmer's telling Brian that he just needs to trust him, you know, just put me on the back of your neck where that hole is. You'll never have to worry again. You'll never have to think again. Just trust me. I don't know about you guys, but if a giant blue brain looking thing popped up on my back, you know, from moving around in my stomach area, I probably wouldn't be putting it on the back of my neck so it could go in the hole that's randomly on my neck and letting it take control of my body. But what do I know? I guess I'm just a party pooper. But at this point in time, we do see Brian actually pick Elmer up and put him on the back of his neck, and we see this cool prosthetic practical effects of Elmer opening up his mouth. We see a bunch of teeth inside of it, and then this like wire comes out of his neck, or out of his mouth, and going into Brian's neck to kind of mind control him, I guess you could say. Of course, as soon as Elmer does that, we then see a shot of inside Brian's brain, and then a blue liquid gets shot through the brain and starts sparking his brain. And Brian feels the back of his neck, and we see his hand is covered in blue slime, almost like a Smurf had a fun time on the back of his head. Then Brian's brother and his girlfriend come home, and the girlfriend's like, oh, I just want to check on Brian to make sure he's okay. So we see them creeping around the apartment, trying to be all spooky and stuff, and they look in Brian's room, and his bed's made, and he's nowhere to be seen. And she's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have been worried about him, I guess. And the brother, Mike's just like, I'm sure he just went out to go get bite to eat. I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure maybe he's just feeling better, that's all. It's still dead at night, and we see Brian running down the sidewalk. He stops at this fenced area and starts peeking through the fence, and it's a scrapyard, and for some reason, he's all excited about it. Jumps the fence, and then as he's looking at the cars, we see various colored lights come from. There's like green lights, yellow lights, orange lights, blue lights, purple lights, and it's just shining all over the place. And he's just like, oh, this is fucking crazy. This is fucking great. And then the security guard at the scrapyard is like, what the hell is going on outside? Because from the security guard's point of view, all he can hear is just some madman screaming off in the distance, going on about how this is great and it's such a fun time and crazy. And then we just see the security guard putting on his hat, and he's got his gun, and he's cocking it and be like, I'll shoot the guy if I have to. I'm not dying over a crazy guy being in my scrapyard. Then the security guard finally catches up to Brian. He's like, oh, look at all these colors. He's like, shut up, asshole. And then he starts patting him down and be like, oh, what is that? And starts, tells him to roll over so he can see what's inside Brian's jacket. And that's when Elmer pops out and starts feeding on the security guard's forehead. No other way to put it about it, he's feeding on the guy's forehead. And the guy's trying to pull him off like he's a leech, but it's not helping any. And then of course Brian's so drugged up and dazed at this point in time. He's trying to see what's happening to the security guard, but all he sees is like heat signatures of the security guard making some weird movements and yelling and screaming. And Brian's just smiling about it, being like, whoa, look at the colors, man. And then we see this really nice shot of close-up of the security guard, and we can just tell that Elmer is chewing his way through the security guard's skull. And of course, security guard's down on the ground, and we see like a claymation shot of Elmer like chewing on the security guard's head. And Brown's like, what's going on? Is he okay? And Elmer's like, a little underdone, I guess, but he's not too bad. And then of course Elmer's like, come on, we gotta get out of here before trouble comes. And then Brian's picking Elmer up, being like, hey, can you give me some more drugs, please? Because the colors are starting to fade. I need more. I want to see more colors, please. And I'm assuming it might be the next day, but the girlfriend comes over, and of course Mike answers the door. He's like, Brian's been in the bathtub for the last 3 hours. It's like I don't even know him anymore. He's just just sitting in the bathtub. And I don't know how much time has gone by, because he's like, I don't even know if he has a job anymore. I don't even know if he leaves the apartment anymore. I don't know what's going on with him. He's just been sitting in the goddamn bathtub. And then Mike goes to show her Brian's bedroom, and he's got like 4 or 5 different padlocks on the inside of his door now. And he apparently only locks it when he's inside of the room. Of course, like, how else is he going to lock it if he's not inside the room? But that's besides the point. And then he's like, yeah, look, he's also got these pails of water all over the place. He keeps changing the water out, but he just keeps filling them up, and I don't understand why. And then the girlfriend Barbara starts banging on the door, being like, Brian, are you clean in there? We have a date tonight. Did you forget about it? He's like, oh yeah, I didn't forget about it. I'll be right out. And then as he's playing in the bubble bath, Elmer pops up and shoots him in the chest with some of the blue goo, and Brian starts losing his shit and just screaming out of excitement, of course. Then we see Brian and Barbara at dinner, and he's like, I see everything differently now. I see all the colors. I see everything. I can touch everything. She's like, you see us differently? He's like, I see everything differently. I hear the voices. I hear the music. I see the music. I hear the voices. I see the music. And he's just gone crazy. He's a complete full-on drug addict at this point in time. And even Barbara's like, you're here on drugs, right? He's like, I wish it was that simple, but it's not that simple, actually, Barbara. And Barbara's a little upset because she's like, a couple months ago or weeks ago, you want us to move in together, and now you're just kind of avoiding me and everything. And he's like, well, okay, fine. I'll try and explain it to you. He goes to explain it to her. He's like, that night you went to the concert with Mike, and of course, Elmer is biting him the whole time and trying to make Brian not tell the whole story, because apparently, of course, Elmer doesn't want anyone else knowing about him, because he's an alien creature of some sort. And Brian probably be put in the loony bin if he did say the full story. Anyways, the spaghetti meatballs show up on the table, and Brian's all focused on the meatballs, because now he sees one of the meatballs as like a vibrating brain, and then all the meatballs start turning into vibrating brains, and he's completely enamored by his dinner, of all things. And then he puts the mac in over top of the spaghetti. He's like, you know what, actually, I'm not hungry at all. I'm not hungry. And then he just gets up and leaves. He's like, I gotta go. I don't feel good. I can't eat this stuff. And of course, it's Elmer being hungry for some more brain fluid, essentially. Because by the way it is, I believe Elmer just feeds on other people's brains. And then once he gets enough fluid, he then injects his drug into Brian's brain to make him feel happiness. And then we see a shot of Brian make his way through the night sidewalk streets, and he goes down a dark alleyway where a drunk guy is just trying to relax, mind his business, drinking his booze out of his paper bag. And we see Brian with his face pushed up against a brick wall, and he's telling Elmer, he's like, I need the drug, man, you gotta give me the drug. And then Elmer does pop out and start injecting him with that nice blue goo again, not blue chew, don't get it twisted, not blue chew, blue goo, okay? And then this like rock style music starts playing as the drug is hitting Brian's brain cells, and he's looking around, and then we see this neon sign up behind this wire fencing, and it just says hell. And then we cut inside, and apparently it's this like rocker bar, and Brian's in a full suit because he just came from a fancy ass dinner place, but we just see a bunch of people not like hardcore moshing, but they're kind of like jumping around moshing a little bit. And then this one random girl with a lot of cleavage at the bar is like, I wonder who the guy with the suit is. Brian is such a drug addict at this point in time that he's in the club up against a giant ass speaker that's filling up the whole club with music, and he's just got his ear pressed up against it, rubbing the speaker because he can feel and hear the sounds. And the girl comes over from the bar. She's like, you got a really nice suit, let's go dance. And they start dancing together. He starts laughing like a little school kid and starts shaking his face around. Like, he's completely fucked in the brain at this point in time. And we see Brian and this random girl making out in this hallway area. One end of the hallway goes into the washroom. We see a bunch of girls bang on the door because they want to get in the washroom. And other girls come out and they're wiping their nose because, of course, they're doing that white powder stuff. They're doing the fun dip. But then out of nowhere, we just see Brian and the random girl up on what looks to be maybe the roof or maybe the basement. I can't really tell, to be honest with you. I just see a lot of pipes. I see some brick, and that's about it. I can't tell if they're upstairs or downstairs, to be honest. So I'm not sure at this point in time if this is where Elmer always likes to hide out, because the lady from the bar is tapping Brian's crotch, and she's like, wow, it feels like you got a real monster down there. So then she goes down to unzip his pants, and that's when Elmer pops out and literally goes down her throat. And then we just see Brian holding her head there, and we it's an innuendo, and I don't want to discuss too much because I don't know how much I can say on like Spotify and YouTube and Facebook about this kind of content that's going on right now, because it's very adult oriented. So So, kids, skip this part, I guess. I mean, if you're a kid and you're listening to me talk about this movie, I don't know what to tell you. We now see Brian outside of his apartment complex. He's at the trash cans. He's looking around all confused. It's still nighttime, of course. And then he takes off his pants and underwear, but he puts his pants back on because then he's looking at his underwear and sees blood all over the place. He's probably wondering if he shot himself too much. But no, it's because of the whole incident with the girl at the bar. And when he's under the influence of Elmer's, blue juice, blue goo, whatever you might want to call it, he doesn't know what's going on in his surrounding area at all. He's so doped up and crazed that he has no idea what his body's even doing. And that's when we then hear a voice coming from the shadows, and it's actually the original guy, the old guy from the beginning of the movie, and he's, pretty much yelling at Brian, being like, I know you have him. I know you're feeding off his drugs. You can't control him at all. You're just a puppet. He's just using you as an actor. And of course, the little guy wants him back. And Brian's like, well, why do you want him back? He's like, because he's mine. And I've named him Elmer. And he's like, you named him fucking Elmer? He's like, no, not Elmer. Aylmer. Means the wise and great one. Because he's the wise and great one with all the control and all the power because of his, his blue juice crap. And then the old guy goes on about all the different people that have owned him over the years and how they've been like great masters and, people of high power over the time. Period, of course. Brian, of course, thinks the old guy has gone crazy and out of his mind. But, of course, they're both out of their mind and crazy. And the old man just gets tossed to the side to the garbage can. And then instead of getting up and chasing after Brian, he just literally starts beating on the garbage can, saying, he's mine, give him back, he's mine, I paid for him with blood. And then we see Brian in his room just, throwing all his clothes around. And his brother Mike comes in. He's like, what's going on here, Brian? What's going on? He's like, we got together. He's like, what do you mean, we? He's like, me and Elmer, I got sort things out. I gotta be in control. The old man's right. I gotta be in control of Elmer. He's like, I think you're in trouble. If you're in trouble, I'm your brother. I'll help you. If you're under the influence of drugs, we'll help you detox, okay? And we just see Brian walking around the streets of wherever the hell they might be with a giant, like army sack on his back. He's still dressed up in the suit clothing as well for some reason, but he's just, he's looking for somewhere to call home at this point in time so he can get, his thoughts under control. And he ends up at the Sunshine Hotel of all places. I'm sure it's not sketchy at all. This place is literally a hole in the wall. You open up the door, you see a dresser with a light on it and an ashtray. We see what we can assume is the corner of a bed and then the sink across from it, and that's it. And then he fills up the sink with some water, and Elmer pops up. He's like, real nice room you got here, Brian. Real classy. I like the atmosphere of it a lot. And that's when then Brian's like, well, we gotta talk. Is the old man right? Is the old man telling the truth about everything? Are you trying to control me? Using me as a puppet? He's like, no, the old man's a liar. He's feeding me animal brains and blood and stuff, trying to keep me weak the whole time, trying to control me. And Elmer's like, I left them, and I was weak when I left them. Do you want me to leave you too, Brian? And Brian's like, no, I just want to get things sorted out, that's all. And he's like, well, why are we here then? He's like, well, I just want to get things sorted out. I don't want you to leave me. I just, we're friends here. And then Brian's like, I want to be kept in the loop of things, especially when there's blood in my underwear. He's like, that's nothing. It's just from that girl at the club. He's like, what girl? The girl I ate her brains out at the club. And he's like, what? Are you telling me we killed someone last night? And he's like, not we. And then Elmer's like, what about the night watchman at the scrapyard? You want the details about him? We killed him too. We sucked him dry. He's like, no, I don't want the details. I don't want any of this. He's like, how about you just put me on the back of your neck? You need to calm down a little bit. He's like, no, I'm not putting you on the back of my neck. I don't want to kill anyone else. So now they're having a standoff because Brian's like, you know what, we're gonna stay in this hotel. Maybe I should put you in a jar somewhere so you can't bite me in my sleep because I'm gonna make sure your blue juice gets out of my system and I detox. He's like, fine, that's fine. I won't bite you when you're sleeping. I'll just make you wait for it and make you want it and make you ask for it. And then we see Brian, detoxing a little bit and getting ready to throw up. He's like, Elmer's like, I don't really want to see you throw up. Why don't you just leave me at home and throw up on your own here and put me somewhere else, please? And the whole time Brian is like crying in pain and puking his brains out. He's like, Brian, the only thing that's gonna stop the pain and stop this issue happening is if you put me on the back of your neck and let me fill you up with some juice. We now see it's nighttime. We see Brian having the shakes as he's wrapped up in a blanket, and Elmer's like, hey Brian, why don't we go out for the night, huh? How about we go up the street, get some hookers, have a great night. I could eat a bunch of them tonight because I'm starving. How about we do that? And then we cut back to seeing Brian, who no longer has the blanket around him, but he's waking up and he's feeling, his face and stuff, and there's blood all over the place, and he's bleeding from his ear. That's when Brian starts feeling around his ear. It slowly starts to pull things out of his ear, and it's like a magic trick because the thing just keeps going and going and going. And then Brian gives it one last tug, and then something else pops out, and then Elmer's like, "Uh-oh, Brian, you're really losing your mind now." And then we just see blood gushing out of Brian's head, and then we hear Elmer laughing, and of course it was just a bad, drug-fueled nightmare that Brian was having. So now the next morning, we see the sunlight coming in, we can hear some cars in the background, maybe some sirens and stuff, and we see Brian in his underwear as he's foaming from the mouth again, like the old couple were, and it's just Elmer talking to him, being like, "Yeah, when you want the pain, then just come to me, Brian. I'll make all the pain go away." And then Brian's waking up to the sound of Elmer singing a song, and he's just crying to Elmer, being like, please just help me. Just make all the pain stop. Please just help me. And Elmer's pretty much ignoring him and still singing the whole time. So then Elmer finally pays attention to Brian. He's like, "Yeah, of course I'll help you, Brian. But there's just one problem. You're going to have to feed me first for me to help you." So then we see a very sweaty, fucked out of his mind Brian slowly walking out of the hotel room with no shoes on, no socks on. He's just got pants and a shirt on. And he's going to door to door, be like, "Hello? Anybody in there?" It's to the point where he's trying to open pretty much every single door that's on the same hallway as him, but he can't get into any of the doors. And then hears someone come up the stairwell, and this is biker guy and this little skinny guy. He's like, all of this crap going on in the news, this whole world's gonna come to an end soon. The biker guy's waiting for the end of the world because he's happy to see it happen, because he's like, I'm gonna rule the world once everything's wrecked and destroyed. And then he goes into one of the apartments that Brian was trying to get into, but then out of nowhere Brian hears a shower running somewhere, and then he starts creeping around in the hallway, and then we see a naked guy taking a shower. I'm not sure if that's in that same room or what. No, it doesn't look like the biker guy from behind, because this guy's jacked. And then we see, I don't know what's happening at this point in time, but then we just see Brian stripping down to go in the shower, and then the muscle guys turn around and be like, "Hey, you know here? I don't see you around here too often, huh? Here, just watch me rub down and wash my peck. I'm not gonna bother you at all with my porn star mustache." Apparently this hotel has just a community shower that anyone can use at any point in time. There's no doors, there's no nothing, it's just a hallway. And then we see Brian just staring at the guy as he turns around to wash up some more. And then we see Elmer crawling down his leg, and then the guy turns around again and be like, "Hey, what's your problem?" Brian's like, nothing, no, I got no problem, man, please don't hurt me." Elmer was seen crawling across the shower floor at one point in time, but then the muscle guy's like, "All right, shower's all yours, bud, have fun, I guess." And then we just see Brian looking around and be like, "Elmer, where'd you go, bud? Hey, buddy, where'd you go, buddy? It's a empty shower somehow, but somehow I lost your dumb blue ass." Then we just got to this washroom stall area where we just see, I think it's the guy that actually showed up with the biker guy. He's sitting on the toilet reading a comic book, I think it was Dead World, and he hears a sound. So then he opens up the door being like, hey, is that you? Is that you? And then I think he's calling to the biker guy. And then he closes the stall door while he's still sitting on the toilet and looks up, and we just see Elmer hanging off the bathroom stall door, and he just lashes onto the guy's head and slowly starts eating his brains away. And of course Brian runs to where he hears the sounds coming from the washroom. He's like, Elmer, you gotta hurry up, someone's gonna hear. And we see just blood splattering all over the place, and Brian's freaking out because the back wall of this whole bathroom shower area is just filling up with blood all over the place. He's like, oh crap, how am I gonna explain this? And then we see Brian, he's looking better well dressed at this point in time. He's not looking like a full drug addict because we can assume he got some juices from Elmer. And he's making his way back home, locking up all his locks on his door in his bedroom and going to sleep. And then we see Mike and Barbara coming back, and Barbara's like, yeah, I'm really glad you've been hanging out with me, Mike. You know, I could really use it. He's like, oh, I wish I could actually do more for you. You're a really special lady, and if Brian can't see that anymore, I do. I see it in you. Let's bone. And then Mike's like, you know, I only stayed away from you because, you know, you and Brian were together dating, but if there's nothing there anymore, then I would love to be with you. And Brian's actually waking up to hearing this conversation happening. Then out of nowhere, Mike and Barbara are just getting it on, and Brian's just laying in his bed, staring at the ceiling, just listening to them the whole entire time for some reason. The scene actually goes on for a while, and it starts to make you wonder, like, are they just acting, or are they really doing it? And then we see, like, from Brian's feet, we see the blanket start to go up, and we assume it's him, you know, getting a woody, but it's just it's just Elmer popping up being like, oh, hi Brian, how's it going? You want to put me on the back of your neck now so you can get drugged and fucked up and I can go feed on someone's brains? This is where the movie gets kind of strange because we see, the drugs hitting Brian and he's staring up at the ceiling, and then the ceiling turns into space, and then the ceiling changes, and next thing we know, we see Mike, Barbara, and Brian all naked together. But then when we look at Brian, he's got the suction cups on his stomach that are on Elmer's stomach, and then we just see Brian feeding off of the brain of Barbara. But then it just cuts to Barbara and Mike asleep in the bed together, just like sleeping, actual sleeping, not doing anything, just asleep. And then Barbara wakes up to Brian just standing over the bed, being like, where'd you go? What happened? And Mike wakes up, he's like, oh man, I'm sorry. I thought you were gone. And then Brian's like, you guys gotta leave before I get back. The thing in my head feeds when it gets hungry and somebody gets killed. He just ate not too long ago, but he's going to feed again soon. So he needs brains. So you guys need to just simply get out of here, please. I try to fight him, but I can't, because I'm a drug addict now for him. So you guys need to get out here before you guys die. Brian's pleading for them to leave, and then he's leaving the house so he can go feed on a different brain. He's like, I'll just take his juices, that way I don't know the killings are happening, but I can't live with myself if I wake up and find out you guys are dead. So then he starts going for the subway, but of course Barbara decides to follow after him. So then we see Brian get on a subway train, and of course Barbara follows after him, and Barbara's like, I know you're having some issues, I'm just here to try and help you. And then these different scenes are happening, and Brian's looking at Barbara, but he sees her in different color palettes. And at one point in time we see Elmer pop out of his mouth, but then he pops right back in, and I'm not sure if it's because like the subway car is going through a shadow area, if he just appears and then he disappears. But then across from him we see Basket Case out of nowhere, which I didn't recall before. I thought that was a nice play because of course the writer for this one, Frank I believe was his name, is also one of the guys from Basket Case. And Basket Case is actually sitting across from Brian, and they're both making eye contact with each other. But then Basket Case is like, you know what, I'm actually going to sit somewhere else on the subway car because you're kind of freaking me out, dude. And Barbara's saying, to Brian, she's talking to Brian the whole time, but she's saying how much she loves him, how much she doesn't want to lose him. And then she starts making out with him, but that's bad because then her eyes start rolling in the back of her head because Elmer is feeding on her brains the whole time. And we just see, her grabbing at Brian's jacket at the back, and everyone else on the subway car is just like, oh, there's drunk kids, making out, no big deal. And we see as Brian's getting done eating the brains out of her, he lays Barbara down on the seat and gets off at the next stop, and nobody notices a difference at all, even though we can see blood out of Barbara's mouth the whole time. She's got blood dripping down both sides and down the middle of her mouth, but nobody notices anything on the subway train. Then we see Brian back at the trash cans at the apartment complex. He's throwing out one of his sweaters because it's covered in blood, and then the old couple pop out of the darkness with a gun being like, we want them back and we want them back now. So they shoot a warning shot, and this trucker guy comes out. He's like, what's going on out here? So then they shoot a warning shot at him, and he just runs away. And then the old lady's got Brian pushed up against the wall, and she's patting him down, and they find Elmer on his back. He's like, no, don't take him, please. I need him. I'll be sick without him. So then the old lady gets Elmer off of Brian's back, and she goes to take him over to the other old guy, and she gets in the hallway, and she pushes the old guy away. But then Elmer starts feeding on her brain. So then the old guy's like, no, I want you. And he tries to pull Elmer off of her brain, like her forehead. But of course, that's not happening at all because he's got so many goddamn small teeth. The whole time we hear the screaming of the old lady as Elmer is eating her brains. And then we see Brian getting up. He notices the old guy's gun is on the ground, so he picks it up. And then out of nowhere we hear the old guy screaming because now Elmer is eating through the side of his face at his brain. And Brian's just like, oh God, what's going on here? We just see Brian standing there watching the whole time as he watches Elmer eat the old guy's brain, and he falls to the ground. And Brian's like, oh God, we gotta get out of here. And Elmer just pops back up. He's like, I'm not finished yet. I'm still eating some brains. Then we see Brian picking up Elmer and getting ready to put him on his on his back, his neck, so that Elmer can start, juicing him up a bit. But of course, the old guy's not actually fully dead yet, and he comes back to life while he's on the ground, and then he jumps up and tries to rip Elmer off the back of Brian's neck. He does finally rip him off the back of his neck, but we see all these teeth and everything sticking out of Elmer because, he was, injecting the blue juice into Brian's, brainstem. And the old guy just throws Elmer down the ground. We see him like twitching and screaming, and there's blood going all over the place. I'm not sure if he's dying at this point in time or what's going on. Then we see Brian's brain starting to freak out, and it's starting to spark a bunch, and then we just see Brian screaming as there's like a boil or a bubble popping up on his forehead and blood starting to pour down his face. And then we heard banging on the apartment door, and Mike closes the door because he thinks it's Barbara. And then out of nowhere, Brian just screams as blood and what looks to be like blue goo is running out of his face, and he runs into his room and gets behind his door, and he starts pointing the gun at his head where that big boil is coming out of. And then we hear a gunshot going off as the cops are showing up at the apartment complex because everyone's outside because they heard all the commotion. And as the gunshot goes off, we see what we can assume is Brian's bedroom, and a giant bright light just starts flashing all over the place. And then we see Mike and the cops breaking down the door, and we just see Brian inside of his room with a giant hole in his head and a giant bright light coming out of it. And then we just see some electricity shooting all over the screen like the intro of the movie, and the music starts to pick up, and then the outro credits start to play, and that's the end of the movie. And I gotta say, I enjoy this movie a lot. I've always enjoyed this movie. It's silly, it's weird. The more that I watch it now, it's just the more understanding of the aspect of this is essentially an alien that's feeding on your brain and making you become a drug addict. That's essentially what it is. And I like the practical effects. I like that there's a couple shots of like claymation at one point in time. I really dig the claymation style artwork and whatnot. So I definitely highly recommend checking this movie out. I think it's a fun little small monster movie, and yeah, I think it's really cool. On the Rotten scale, I'm giving this one a solid 8 out of 10. I would definitely watch this again in a matter of moments. I could watch it again next month for all I care. I think it's a good movie. I think you'll like it, so hopefully you'll check it out. Which brings us to a point in time where we gotta pick what we're watching next week. Alright, we're gonna watch another movie that's a first time watch for us. That's the whole point of this podcast. Well, not the whole point of this podcast. I just like watching movies. But we're gonna watch a movie that we've never actually seen before, haven't heard a single thing about it at all. We're gonna watch a movie from 1988 called Slaughterhouse Rock. I know absolutely nothing about this movie. Haven't watched the trailer, haven't read the synopsis or anything. It's free on YouTube. You can go find it. So if you guys want to watch it before next week's podcast, feel free to go watch it on YouTube. I know you probably shouldn't be promoting that too much, but there's a lot of copies of old movies that are definitely hard to find on YouTube, and they're all fairly decent copies. So definitely go check it out. But yeah, hopefully it's gonna be a fun one. So we're doing another 80s horror movie, so hopefully you guys will tune in for that one as well. And as always, make sure to check out the outro band, Toronto-based horror band Blood Opera. You can find all their links down below, but the main thing you can find them on is YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the Spotify. Definitely go check them out on Spotify. I don't know why I said the Spotify. Go check them out on Spotify. Go give their last album a listen. Go give all their music a listen. Hit that follow button and subscribe to them on any platform that you wish. And as always, make sure to follow me on all platforms as well at Typhonstein. You can find us on anything and everything, pretty much Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, the Facebook page. I mentioned the Facebook page. Definitely go check out the Facebook page, but more importantly, make sure to check out the YouTube channel where we post a weekly game video every single Wednesday. I have old episodes of the podcast over there as well. We have various art shorts going on as well, and I also do live streams over on the YouTube channel as well. So definitely go check it out. Hit that bell notification, turn it on. That way you get notified every time I
post either a new video or I go live with a new stream. And I will talk to you guys all later. Peace.
Whisper in the glass room.